Deep in the sands of time lies a civilization shrouded in mystery, ancient Nubia. While Egypt's pyramids steal the spotlight, Nubia's forgotten legends whisper secrets that still stump experts today. What if I told you some of these myths defy explanation, even with modern archaeology? From shape-shifting deities to lost cities swallowed by the desert, Nubian mythology holds puzzles that refuse to be solved. These aren't just stories, they're riddles carved into history, waiting for someone to unravel them. So why do these ancient tales keep baffling scholars? And what hidden truths might they still be guarding? Stick around, because we're about to dive into 25 Nubian myths that continue to mystify the world. Among the swirling sands of the Nubian desert rises the roar of a god unlike any other, Apedemak, the lion-headed deity whose creation myth defies expectations. While most ancient cultures imagined their world shaper as a celestial being, Nubians envisioned theirs as a warrior king, emerging from the savannah with claws still wet from battle. Legend says Apedemak didn't just shape the earth, he conquered it, forging the first mountains with his spear and filling the Nile with the blood of primordial beasts. This isn't a gentle Genesis story. It's a saga of fire and dominion where creation itself is an act of war. What makes this myth truly startling? Unlike Egyptian Ra sailing peacefully across the sky or Mesopotamian gods molding clay figures, Apedemak's power is visceral. His connection to Nubian royalty runs deep. Kings weren't just his worshippers, they were his earthly reflections, expected to lead with the same ferocity. Temples across Nubia show him breathing flames onto enemies, a stark contrast to Osiris' quiet judgment or Thoth's scholarly calm. Even the landscape whispers his name. Archaeologists found lion sculptures guarding forgotten temples, their jaws forever frozen mid-roar. But here's the twist that puzzles historians. Why does this warrior god vanish from later records while others endure? Some suggest his cult was too tied to Nubia's golden age of conquest, fading as empires rose and fell. Yet carvings in Meroë reveal priests still offering sacrifices to him centuries after neighboring religions had moved on. Perhaps Apedemak's myth holds a key to understanding how Nubia saw itself, not just as a civilization but as an unconquered force of nature. Beneath the golden sands of Nubia lies a legend that has haunted treasure hunters for centuries, the cursed hoard of Queen Amanishakheto. Unlike typical tales of hidden riches, this one carries a chilling warning: disturb her treasure and death follows like a shadow. This warrior queen ruled with an iron fist, amassing gold and jewels so vast that even Rome envied her wealth. But when she vanished, so did her fortune, purposely hidden, some say, with a curse woven into its very foundation. The first clues surfaced in the early 19th century when European explorers uncovered fragments of her pyramid at Wad Ban Nokka. Among the rubble, they found inscriptions promising doom to anyone who dared claim what belonged to the queen. These weren't idle threats. Within months, several excavators met brutal, unexplained ends, some vanishing in sandstorms, others succumbing to sudden illness. The most infamous case, a French archaeologist who boasted of taking a golden amulet only to be found dead in his tent hours later, clutching his chest as if struck by an invisible hand. Modern expeditions haven't fared any better. Satellite imaging once revealed what could be a hidden chamber beneath the ruins, but the team tasked with uncovering it mysteriously abandoned their dig. Rumor claims their equipment failed all at once, cameras capturing distorted figures in the dust before going dark. Even today, locals refuse to tread near the site after sundown, whispering that the queen's spirit guards what's hers. What makes this curse so compelling isn't just the eerie deaths, it's the defiance behind them. Amanishakheto wasn't just a ruler, she was a symbol of Nubia's unconquered pride. Perhaps her treasure was never meant to be found, or perhaps the curse is a final act of vengeance against those who would plunder her legacy. One thing's certain, Until someone solves the riddle of her final resting place, the sands will keep their secrets and their dead. The desert winds still carry whispers of Kerma, a city that thrived for over 1,000 years until it simply wasn't there anymore. Unlike other lost civilizations that faded gradually, Kerma's disappearance feels unnervingly abrupt, as if swallowed whole by the sands. Ancient Nubian traders spoke of arriving to find empty streets, untouched market stalls, and silent palaces, no signs of war, no fleeing masses, just eerie stillness. How does a bustling metropolis, the heart of a kingdom, vanish without a trace? Archaeologists have pieced together fragments of the truth. Kerma was a powerhouse, its rulers buried in massive mud-brick tombs filled with sacrificed servants and gold. Then, around 1500 BCE, the city's grandeur collapsed. Some blame an invasion, a crushing defeat by Egypt's expanding empire, yet the evidence is thin. No layers of ash from burning buildings, no mass graves from battle, just abandonment, but the myth offers a darker explanation. Oral traditions tell of a priest-king who dared to challenge the gods, angering the lion-headed Apedemak himself. In punishment, the city was cursed, not destroyed, but erased. Some versions claim its people turned to statues overnight. Others say the earth simply opened and took them. Modern surveys reveal something peculiar. The city's layout suggests rituals were interrupted mid-ceremony, as if time stopped. Even stranger, nearby settlements show no record of refugees. It's as though Kerma's entire population dissolved into the air. Perhaps the truth lies between history and legend. A climate shift could have choked the Nile's waters, forcing a sudden exodus. Or maybe the city fell to a silent enemy disease, a coup, a broken faith in their rulers. Whatever happened, Kerma's ghost lingers, daring us to solve a mystery written in dust and silence. One of archaeology's greatest puzzles isn't just where the people went, but why they left behind a city frozen in time. High on a sun-baked plateau in Meroë, rows of sandstone statues stand frozen in time, but locals swear they weren't always silent. These towering figures, depicting kings and queens with piercing stone eyes, were once believed to whisper secrets of the future to those who knew how to listen. Imagine approaching one of these colossi at dusk, the air thick with incense, as priests chanted spells to awaken the wisdom trapped in stone. According to scrolls found in the ruins, certain rulers would spend entire nights kneeling before these statues, waiting for a single cryptic phrase that could alter the fate of their kingdom. The ritual was precise. Offerings of myrrh and honey were burned at the statues' feet while priests anointed them with sacred Nile water. If the gods favored the asker, the statue's lips were said to tremble, not with movement, but with a sound like distant thunder, forming words only the seeker could hear. One fragmentary text describes a queen halting her army's march after a statue warned of sand that drinks blood. Days later, scouts discovered an ambush waiting in the very valley she'd planned to cross. Yet here's what baffles researchers. Modern examinations show no hidden mechanisms, no tubes or vents that could simulate speech. The statues are solid stone. So were Nubian priests masters of acoustics, using wind patterns or chanting harmonics to create illusions? Or was there something deeper at work, a collective belief so powerful it shaped reality? Some carvings hint at a darker cost. Rulers who ignored the statue's warnings often met calamity, as if the stones themselves cursed them. Perhaps the truth lies in the echoes. Meroë's temples were designed with eerie sonic properties. Whispers at one altar can be heard clearly across the sanctuary. Maybe the voices were never supernatural, just an ancient form of psychological warfare, a way to unite people under oracles they couldn't disprove. But try telling that to the desert guides who still refuse to walk among those statues after dark. They'll tell you some stones remember, and sometimes if the wind is right, they still speak. The Nile wasn't just a river to the Nubians, it was a living, breathing force with a will of its own. Along its winding banks, ancient tales speak of unseen guardians, spirits woven into the water itself. These weren't mere mythological figures, they were the heartbeat of survival. When the river swelled with floodwaters, it was the spirits' generosity. When the land cracked under drought, their anger. Every ripple carried meaning, every current a message. Unlike Egypt's more formalized gods like Hapi, the Nubian guardians defied simple classification. They shifted forms, sometimes serpents gliding beneath the surface, other times radiant figures wading through the reeds. Farmers left offerings of honey and woven reed baskets at the river's edge, not in grand temples but in quiet, personal rituals. A bad harvest wasn't just bad luck, it meant the spirits needed appeasing. Even fishermen carried charms carved from hippopotamus ivory, believing the guardians protected them from capsizing, or worse, from being dragged into the depths by unseen hands. What fascinates scholars is how these beliefs shaped Nubia's relationship with the Nile compared to their northern neighbors. Egyptians built complex irrigation systems to control the floods, but Nubians often worked with the river's natural rhythms, trusting the spirit's whims. Records from Meroë describe priests interpreting the river's sounds, the way waves lapped against stones, or how crocodiles clustered in certain bends, as divine warnings. One stele even recounts a year when the floods never came, blaming it on a village that had polluted the waters with iron smelting. The entire settlement was relocated to atone. Yet the most striking evidence of these beliefs lingers in the landscape. Near the ruins of Kerma, archaeologists found dozens of small, ceremonial piers jutting into the Nile, not for boats but as meeting places between humans and spirits. Even today, some Nubian farmers whisper that if you stand by the river at dawn and listen closely, you might hear the guardians humming beneath the current. Whether myth or metaphor, one truth remains: to the Nubians, the Nile wasn't just a resource. It was a sacred conversation, one we've only begun to decipher. In the shadowed halls of Nubian legend, one name echoes with eerie persistence: Pharaoh Nastasen, the ruler who allegedly cheated death itself. While most kings sought glory in battle or monuments, Nastasen pursued something far more audacious: eternal life. Ancient texts describe a desperate bargain struck deep within the temple of Ammon, where the pharaoh offered the gods something beyond gold or sacrifices, his very legacy. In exchange, they granted him not just a place in the afterlife, but an unbroken existence on earth. The myth takes a strange turn when examining the historical record. Unlike other Nubian rulers buried in grand pyramids, Nastasen's tomb was never found, at least not one containing a body. A shattered stele near Meroë hints at his fate, depicting the pharaoh standing before deities with an empty throne beside him, as if reserving a seat for his return. Even more intriguing are later accounts from Roman traders, who swore a man matching Nastasen's description appeared in markets centuries after his supposed death, purchasing rare herbs and vanishing into the desert. But the real impact of this legend lies in how it transformed Nubian kingship. After Nastasen's era, rulers began styling themselves as eternal ones in official decrees, a title previously reserved for gods. His myth became a blueprint, proof that mortality wasn't an inevitability, but a challenge to overcome. Archaeologists note a surge in elaborate mortuary rituals during this period, with tombs featuring false doors and extra chambers, as if preparing for a physical resurrection. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the mystery of Nastasen's disappearance. It's the cultural ripple effect, the way one man's quest rewrote the rules of divinity and power. Was he a visionary, a madman, or something in between? The temples won't say. But in Nubia's collective memory, the immortal pharaoh still walks, waiting for the day history finally catches up to him. For centuries, travelers near the ruins of the kingdom of Kush have reported something impossible: an army that shouldn't exist. Under the pale glow of moonlight, shadows move where no living soldiers stand, armored figures marching in perfect formation across long abandoned battlefields. Locals call it the Ghost Army, a spectral legion doomed to guard their homeland for eternity. The earliest accounts come from Arab traders in the 9th century who wrote of hearing war drums echoing through empty valleys. One caravan even described seeing ranks of warriors materialize from the dunes, their weapons glinting, their bodies oddly translucent before vanishing like smoke in the wind. Fast forward to the 19th century, when British explorer Samuel Baker recorded his own chilling encounter in his journals. Camped near the ancient capital of Napata, his team awoke to the sound of clashing swords and battle cries. Baker swore he saw a banner bearing the Kushite sun symbol floating above invisible hands before the entire vision dissolved at dawn. Modern sightings only deepen the mystery. A geological survey team in 2010 captured thermal images of unexplained heat signatures moving in military patterns near the royal pyramids. Even more unsettling, the patterns matched the exact formations described in Kushite military scrolls. Local guides refused to venture near certain ruins after sunset, whispering that the spirits grow restless if outsiders disturb their watch. What connects these stories? Some scholars suggest the myth stems from Kush's fierce resistance against invaders, a kingdom that refused to fall even in death. Others point to a darker possibility: mass burials of soldiers who swore oaths to protect their land beyond the grave. Whether echoes of history or something beyond our understanding, one thing is certain: walk the ruins of Kush alone at night, and you might just hear the footsteps of an army that time forgot. At the foot of the sacred mountain Jebel Baffle, the Nile's waters once teemed with creatures that blurred the line between beast and god, crocodiles unlike any other. These weren't mere reptiles, they were living vessels of Sobek, the Nile's most feared and revered deity. Gilded and adorned with gemstone collars, they glided through temple canals like shimmering shadows, their every movement interpreted as divine will. To approach one was to stand before the mouth of the cosmos itself. Worship of these sacred crocodiles wasn't passive, it was visceral. Ancient carvings depict priests hand-feeding them choice cuts of meat while chanting spells to awaken the god's tongue. Oracles would then study how the creatures devoured the offerings. A swift strike meant favor, hesitation warned of calamity. Some texts even describe initiates bathing in the same waters as the crocodiles, a test of faith where survival proved Sobek's blessing. Yet the most chilling chapter of this myth involves the crocodile's sudden vanishing. For centuries, the temple records meticulously noted each creature's life, until one day the entries stopped. No mass deaths, no relocated specimens, just silence. Later accounts tell of hunters spotting gold-scaled beasts far upstream, trailing blood-red water in their wake. Modern archaeologists made an eerie discovery. Buried near the temple lies a network of submerged tunnels large enough for a grown crocodile to pass. Were they escape routes or gateways? What lingers isn't just the mystery of their disappearance, but the cultural aftershocks. After the crocodiles vanished, Jebel Baffle's priests began wearing amulets filled with Nile mud, a desperate attempt to hold onto Sobek's presence. To this day, locals warn against swimming near the mountain's base when the moon is full. They say the water sometimes ripples against the current, as if something unseen still patrols its depths. Perhaps the sacred crocodiles never left. Perhaps they're waiting gods in scales, biding their time. Deep in the deserts of Nubia, where the wind carves stories into stone, lies a burial site so feared that even the bravest archaeologists hesitate before entering: the tomb of King Tanwutamani. This isn't just another ancient resting place. It's a place where history and horror collide, where those who dare to disturb its silence seem to invite misfortune. The legend begins with Tanwutamani himself, the last ruler of the 25th dynasty, who swore in his final hours that no hand would desecrate his legacy without consequence. When modern excavators first breached the tomb's hidden entrance in the early 20th century, they found more than artifacts, they found a warning. Hieroglyphs at the threshold read, "The restless shall find no peace." At first dismissed as mere superstition, the word soon took on a darker meaning. Tools vanished overnight, cameras malfunctioned without explanation. One team member claimed to hear whispers echoing from empty chambers, chanting a name that wasn't recorded in any known text. Then came the injuries, strange rashes, sudden fevers, all with no medical cause. The strangest incident occurred in 1978 when a renowned Egyptologist named Dr. Richard Hayes attempted to remove a ceremonial dagger from the burial chamber. His journal, later recovered, described how the blade burned his fingers despite being cold to the touch. Days later, he was hospitalized with symptoms eerily similar to ancient descriptions of the pharaoh's curse. His colleagues abandoned the excavation, leaving much of the tomb unexplored. But here's what truly chills historians. Recent ground-penetrating radar scans reveal something unsettling. The tomb's layout doesn't match any known Nubian burial design. Hidden passages branch off in unnatural angles, leading to chambers that shouldn't exist. Some researchers speculate these weren't just architectural quirks but deliberate traps, perhaps inspired by Tutankhamun's deep-seated fear of invasion. Others suggest something more unsettling, that the king's final resting place was never meant to be found at all. Even today, Bedouin guides refuse to camp near the site. They speak of cold spots in the desert air, of shadows that move against the wind. Whether curse or coincidence, one thing is clear: King Tutankhamun's tomb guards its secrets fiercely. And perhaps some doors, once opened, were never meant to stay that way. Among Nubia's most enigmatic legends whispers the story of priests who walked the line between human and beast, the shape-shifting servants of Amun. Imagine a temple ceremony where the air itself seemed to tremble, as robed figures stepped into torchlight, only to emerge moments later with the golden eyes of a falcon or the coiled grace of a desert serpent. This wasn't mere ritual theater. To the Nubians, these transformations were real, a sacred bridge between the divine and mortal realms. The practice traces back to Kushite scrolls describing the awakening of the god's skin. Initiates would undergo months of grueling preparation, fasting, chanting, and ingesting rare herbs before their first metamorphosis. Some texts claim the priests didn't just resemble animals, they gained their instincts, their strengths, even their voices. A 4th-century stele recounts a high priestess who took the form of a lioness to track raiders across the desert, returning at dawn with blood on her jaws and justice served. What makes this myth resonate beyond Nubia is its echo across Africa. From Benin's leopard societies to Mali's crocodile shamans, shape-shifting appears as a recurring thread in spiritual traditions. Scholars suggest these stories reflect a profound worldview, one where identity wasn't fixed but fluid, to where an animal's form was to commune with its essence, borrowing a hunter's cunning or a bird's perspective. Yet Nubia's version holds a unique twist. While other cultures often tied transformations to masks or trances, Nubian accounts insist the change was physical. A broken clay tablet from Meroë describes a horrified Roman envoy watching a priest's bones crack and reshape beneath his skin. Modern excavations near the Temple of Amun uncovered strangely hybridized remains, skeletons with elongated vertebrae resembling serpentine spines, their burial shrouds stitched with feathers. Were these symbolic or something more? Perhaps the truth lies in the power of belief. In a land where the desert could morph from lifeless dunes to fertile plains with the Nile's floods, transformation wasn't fantasy, it was daily reality. The priests of Amun may have mastered a different kind of magic, the ability to make myth walk among men. And if you listen closely to the wind in the ruins, some say you can still hear the echo of footsteps that aren't entirely human. Hidden within the ruins of Temple T burns a legend that defies time. An undying flame said to flicker without fuel, without wax, without any earthly explanation. Ancient texts describe it as the breath of the gods, a fire kindled from divine energy rather than ordinary spark. pilgrims once traveled for weeks just to glimpse its glow, believing its light held prophetic visions. But what makes this myth truly astonishing? Modern excavations revealed something impossible. The temple's inner chamber shows no soot stains, no evidence of torches. Just a stone basin at its center, polished smooth by centuries of hands reaching toward empty air. The flame's role in Nubian spirituality was profound. Unlike ceremonial fires tended by priests, this one required no maintenance. Rituals here revolved around interpreting its movements. A sudden flare signaled impending drought, while a low, steady burn promised abundant harvest. Scrolls from Meroë even recount how Queen Amanishakheto ordered the evacuation of a border town after the flame leapt like a cornered jackal days before invaders attacked. Yet the most haunting detail comes from a Greek historian's account, claiming the fire changed colors based on unseen forces, blazing blue during lunar eclipses, crimson when a king died. Science offers intriguing theories. Geologists note the temple sits atop a natural gas vent, possibly igniting spontaneously. Others suggest clever ancient engineering, mirrors focusing sunlight onto oil-soaked fibers, creating the illusion of an eternal blaze. But neither explanation fully fits. The gas theory doesn't account for the flame's reported behavior, and no reflective devices were ever found. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't how the fire burned, but why it vanished. Local lore insists it didn't extinguish, it simply retreated underground, waiting for the day Temple T's true purpose is rediscovered. What lingers is the cultural imprint. Long after the flame's disappearance, Nubian kings still carried ceremonial lamps lit from its last spark, a tradition echoing into the Christian era. Even now, on certain windless nights, desert nomads swear they see a faint glow pulsing beneath the temple's ruins, not firelight, but something older, something still alive in the stones. Whether divine gift or brilliant deception, the eternal flame challenges us to wonder, how much of the past have we misunderstood, and what other miracles might history have mistaken for myth? Here's the next segment for your script. Strange things happened when kings slept in Nubia, especially for King Aspelta. Carved into a weathered slab of sandstone, his famous dream stele tells of a night when the gods ripped open the veil between worlds, pouring visions of the future directly into his mind. This wasn't just royal propaganda. For the Nubians, dreams were cracks in reality, moments when mortal rulers could eavesdrop on divine conversations. The stele's inscription, still partially legible after centuries, describes Aspelta witnessing the unspoken plans of enemies and harvests not yet planted. What makes these visions so extraordinary? Unlike vague prophecies, they came with eerie specifics. One passage mentions a distant city's fall, complete with the name of its ruler years before the event occurred. Archaeologists later cross-referenced it with Egyptian records, finding a match so precise it sent chills down their spines. Dream interpretation in Nubia wasn't a passive art, it was a high-stakes science. Temple scribes kept exhaustive manuals linking symbols to real-world outcomes. A dream of a falcon carrying a serpent, war was coming, crocodiles sunbathing on palace steps. The Nile would flood violently. Aspelta's stele elevated this practice to statecraft. His dreams shaped military campaigns and trade policies. Scholars found evidence that he once redirected grain shipments based on a vision of locusts, saving entire regions from famine. Yet the stele guards one unsolved riddle. Near its base, a damaged section hints at a nightmare so terrifying, Aspelta ordered an entire temple rebuilt to seal away its shadow. No records explain what he saw, only that afterward, no Nubian ruler ever slept in that chamber again. Modern imaging techniques reveal hidden layers beneath the stone's surface, as if the carvers tried to bury something beneath the official text. Perhaps the real power of the dream stele lies in what it reveals about Nubia's worldview. While other cultures saw dreams as mere reflections, Nubians treated them as threads in fate's fabric, ones a skilled king could pull to reshape destiny. Aspelta's legacy isn't just a slab of rock, It's a testament to a civilization that dared to read time like an open scroll. And somewhere in the desert, that stone still stands waiting for someone to decode its final secret. Among the crumbling ruins of Meroë lies a rumor that has tantalized historians for centuries, the whisper of a lost library, its shelves heavy with scrolls containing knowledge too potent to vanish. Unlike Alexandria's legendary collection, this one wasn't just a repository of texts. It was said to hold the unedited truths of Nubia's most guarded mysteries. Accounts from Greek travelers describe a vaulted chamber beneath the royal city, where priests decoded celestial patterns and kings consulted maps of lands not yet discovered. Yet the library's existence remains one of archaeology's fiercest debates. Early excavators found tantalizing clues, clay library tags listing titles like The Book of the Leopard's Dream and The Rivers Beneath the Sand. But the texts themselves gone. Some scholars argue the library was purely symbolic, a metaphor for royal wisdom. Others point to the discovery of an underground network beneath Meroë's palaces, sealed corridors that match ancient descriptions of the House of Words. Ground-penetrating radar recently revealed hollow chambers beneath these passages, their contents still untouched. The most compelling evidence might lie in the margins. A 1st-century merchant's diary, preserved in a Coptic monastery, recounts a drunken palace guard boasting of a hall where the walls breathe papyrus. Modern linguists have even identified loanwords in later Nubian dialects suggesting terms for concepts like advanced metallurgy or eclipse prediction that align with rumored library texts. Why does this legend persist? Because Meroë was no ordinary city. It was a crossroads of African, Egyptian, and Greco-Roman thought, a place where knowledge wasn't just stored, it was weaponized. Perhaps the library wasn't lost, perhaps it was hidden, waiting for the day its secrets could be read without fear. Until then, the sands guard their treasure, leaving us to wonder what truths still lie buried beneath the weight of centuries. High above the dunes of Nubia, the moon wasn't just a celestial body, it was a goddess with a voice, and her silence spoke volumes. Ancient priests called her Tefnut, the radiant oracle who pulled darkness across the sun as a warning. While other cultures trembled during eclipses, Nubian astronomers saw them as divine messages, meticulously recorded on temple walls with astonishing accuracy. Their predictions weren't guesswork, they were the result of centuries observing patterns modern science would only rediscover millennia later. The key to their precision lay in the goddess myth itself. Tefnut wasn't arbitrary, she followed strict celestial etiquette. Scrolls from Napata describe her movements in terms that eerily resemble orbital mechanics. When the silver disk swallows the golden one after 36 moist seasons, the land must prepare. Cross-referencing these texts with NAS, eclipse databases reveal something startling. Nubian priests could forecast eclipses within hours, matching Babylon's famed astronomers despite having no access to their data. But the myth's true brilliance lies in its cultural integration. Eclipse dates dictated everything from harvest schedules to royal coronations. A 9th-century stele shows Queen Kalhata delaying her crowning ceremony by 8 days to avoid a predicted solar eclipse, fearing Tefnut's displeasure. Even warfare bent to these celestial omens. A Kushite general's memoir describes abandoning a siege when an eclipse darkened the battlefield, interpreting it as the goddess shielding their enemies. What modern researchers find most compelling are the eclipse tablets discovered near Meroë. Unlike simple records, these clay discs feature intricate concentric circles, not just depicting eclipses but calculating future ones. Some show corrections scratched into the surface, proving Nubian sky watchers refined their models over generations. The goddess may have been myth, but her patterns were mathematical reality. Perhaps that's why this legend endures. In a world where science and spirituality often clash, Nubia's astronomers found harmony between them. They didn't just fear the darkening sky, they conversed with it, turning celestial phenomena into a language of survival. And if you ever stand in the ruins of Amun's temple during an eclipse, listen closely. The wind might still carry the whispers of priests who understood the moon's secrets long before the rest of the world caught up. Beneath the shifting sands of Nubia, legends speak of a guardian more fearsome than any human army, a serpent forged from living gold coiled around the kingdom's greatest treasures. This wasn't just another monster story. To the Nubians, the golden serpent represented something far deeper, the untamable spirit of the land itself, protecting its riches with a predator's patience. Unlike dragons hoarding wealth in European tales, this creature didn't sleep atop its treasure. It slithered through hidden tunnels beneath temples, its scales whispering against stone as it patrolled. What makes this myth extraordinary is how it mirrors serpent lore across Africa. The Dahomey people told of Ida Wedo, the rainbow serpent who controlled storms, while Zimbabwe's Shona traditions described Nyami, a river spirit with a serpent's body and a fish's head. But Nubia's golden serpent stood apart. It wasn't a nature spirit or a deity, but a deliberately crafted protector. Temple inscriptions suggest priests awakened it through rituals, binding its loyalty to royal bloodlines. One fragmentary text describes a queen cutting her palm to drip blood onto a golden figurine, murmuring, "As my life flows, so shall yours defend." Globally, serpent myths share eerie parallels. In Cambodia, the Naga guarded sacred Buddhist relics. Norse legends spoke of Jörmungandr, the world-encircling serpent. Yet Nubia's version twists the trope. Their serpent didn't just guard riches, it judged who was worthy to possess them. Accounts from Meroë tell of thieves found mummified in perfect condition, their faces frozen in awe rather than fear, as if the serpent had shown them something unimaginable before death. Archaeology adds fuel to the legend. Excavations near ancient Nubian vaults revealed grooves in stone floors patterns too precise to be erosion, resembling the tracks of something massive and heavy. Even more curious, several burial sites contained golden serpent figurines with hollow bellies, some still holding traces of venomous herbs. Were these ritual objects or blueprints for something far more alive? Perhaps the golden serpent was never meant to be taken literally. In a land where gold veins threaded the earth like serpentine rivers, the myth might symbolize Nubia's relationship with its resources, wealth that could bless or destroy depending on how it was approached. Or maybe, just maybe, something still lingers in those sun-scorched ruins. Locals still warn travelers not to pocket even a pebble near certain ruins, lest they hear the unmistakable sound of scales sliding across hot sand. There's a place in Nubia where the desert plays tricks on the eyes, where an entire city flickers into existence under the right light, only to dissolve back into the sands when conditions shift. This is Danjeel, the Phantom City, a settlement said to exist between worlds, visible only when the stars align in a sacred pattern. Unlike typical ghost towns, Danjeel wasn't abandoned. It was hidden, appearing and vanishing with the precision of a celestial clock. Local lore claims the city was built to honor Amun, its walls inscribed with prayers that could only be read under the glow of a full moon in the dry season. Travelers' accounts from as far back as the 6th century describe stumbling upon towering gates and bustling markets in the dead of night, only to wake at dawn surrounded by empty dunes. Even today, nomadic tribes speak of hearing distant laughter and clinking pottery when the wind blows from the east under a cloudless sky. Science has its own theories about these apparitions. Archaeologists studying the site noticed something peculiar. The ruins lie atop a vast limestone plain, its surface polished smooth by millennia of wind. When the angle of sunlight hits just right, especially during twilight hours, the stone acts like a natural mirror, reflecting past structures with eerie clarity. Satellite imaging revealed another clue. Buried beneath the sand are remnants of a sprawling settlement, its layout matching descriptions of the vanishing city. But here's where the myth defies explanation. Thermal scans showed temperature fluctuations in precise geometric patterns exactly where phantom buildings are reported. No natural phenomenon accounts for this. Some researchers speculate the original builders engineered the site to harness atmospheric conditions, creating an intentional illusion. Others wonder if the city's disappearance was a form of ancient defense, a way to shield it from invaders by making it literally unreachable, the most haunting detail. A recent excavation uncovered a stone slab bearing a single phrase, "We built not for the living but for the returning." Whether Dangel was a trick of light, a sacred mirage, or something far stranger, its legacy endures. Because sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, it waits, flickering at the edges of vision, for the perfect moment to step back into the light. For centuries, Nubian storytellers have spoken of a spirit that refuses to fade, a warrior queen whose soul returns when her people need her most. She walks different faces across different eras, but her fire remains the same. The legend begins with Amanishakheto, the one-eyed queen who defied Rome itself, her name etched into history for leading armies with a ferocity that shook empires. Yet long after her death, whispers persisted that her essence lingered, slipping into new bodies when the time was right. Historical records hold eerie echoes of this belief. 600 years after Amanishakheto, another queen arose, Amanishakheto, wielding the same emblem of a lioness on her shield, employing battle tactics mirroring those described in ancient scrolls. Then came the 12th century warrior Princess Adore, who reportedly recited verbatim speeches attributed to Amanishakheto despite no formal education, even more compelling. All three women bore identical scars described in temple carvings, a crescent-shaped mark near the left temple, said to be the kiss of the moon goddess. The myth's power isn't just in its repetition, but in how it shaped Nubian identity. During crises, people would scan crowds for a girl with the queen's eyes, dark and piercing, supposedly capable of silencing a room with a glance. Oral traditions tell of a 17th century rebellion sparked when a teenage herder, marked with the crescent scar, rallied villagers against slavers using strategies no peasant could have known. Was it coincidence, ancestral memory, or something beyond our understanding? Modern scholars remain divided. Some point to cultural priming. A society raised on legends might unconsciously mold leaders to fit them. Others note genetic studies showing hereditary trauma can influence behavior across generations. But in Nubian villages, the answer is simpler. They say great souls make their own rules, especially those who have sworn to protect the land more than once. Whether myth or metaphysics, one truth endures. The warrior queen's spirit hasn't finished writing her story, and somewhere, perhaps, she's listening for the drums of the next battle. Somewhere in the vast Nubian desert, the dunes themselves seem to come alive with an eerie, otherworldly music, a low, resonant hum that vibrates through the bones of anyone who hears it. These are the legendary singing sands, a phenomenon so uncanny that ancient travelers believed they'd stumbled upon a chorus of lost spirits. When the wind blows just right across certain ridges, the entire landscape transforms into a natural instrument, producing deep, melodic tones that can carry for miles under the right conditions. To the Nubians, this wasn't mere geology, it was the desert itself speaking. Oral traditions tell of warrior spirits buried beneath the sands, their voices rising whenever the living needed guidance. Some legends describe specific melodies tied to omens. A high-pitched drone warned of approaching storms, while a rhythmic pulsing signaled safe passage through treacherous routes. Priests from Napata would reportedly journey into the dunes to consult the sands before major decisions, interpreting the tones as divine counsel. Science offers its own fascinating explanation. The phenomenon occurs in specific dry, quartz-rich sand where grains are nearly spherical and uniformly sized. When these grains slide against each other, whether from wind or footfalls, they create synchronized vibrations amplifying into musical notes. Similar effects have been recorded in deserts from Mongolia to Nevada, but Nubia's sands hold a unique distinction. Their songs match the pentatonic scales found in ancient Kushite music. Coincidence? Archaeologists aren't so sure. Excavations near singing dune sites have uncovered ceremonial instruments tuned to harmonize with the sands, suggesting a deliberate cultural connection. Yet for all our modern understanding, something about the experience still feels supernatural. Nomads today speak of moments when the desert falls silent, only to erupt in song precisely when a traveler loses their way, as if the land itself remembers its old role as guide and guardian. Whether physics or forgotten magic, one thing's certain: in Nubia, even the earth has a voice, and sometimes, if you listen closely, it sings back. Deep in the shadowed halls of the Temple of Mut stood an object so feared, even kings hesitated before its polished surface, the Mirror of Truth. Unlike ordinary glass, this bronze disc didn't just reflect faces, it laid bare the soul. Legends claim anyone who spoke falsehoods before would see their image twist into something grotesque, their lies made flesh in real time. But was this mere superstition or a sophisticated tool of Nubian justice? The ritual was precise. Accused criminals would stand before the mirror while priests chanted invocations to Mut, the mother goddess. If their reflection remained clear, they walked free. But those who lied, their features would reportedly darken, their eyes sinking into shadow as the metal itself seemed to writhe. One Assyrian diplomat's journal recounts watching a thief's reflection sprout serpents from its mouth mid-testimony, a sight so horrifying the man collapsed in confession. Archaeologists uncovered clues to the mirror's potential mechanics. The bronze alloy used in its construction contained high levels of arsenic, giving it an unnaturally high reflectivity. Under torchlight, subtle imperfections in the metal could create optical distortions, especially if the viewer was sweating or trembling from guilt. Even more telling, the mirror was mounted at an angle that forced people to crane their necks uncomfortably, amplifying physiological stress responses. Yet the myth's true brilliance lies in its cultural significance. In a society where oral testimony carried immense weight, the mirror wasn't just witchcraft, it was psychological theater. By weaponizing the universal fear of exposure, Nubian judges created a system where the mere threat of facing the mirror compelled honesty. Later court records show confession rates spiked in regions where the mirror's legend spread, proving its power didn't require magic, just belief. Perhaps the most poignant detail comes from a fragmentary love poem found near the temple ruins. A scribe describes a heartbroken woman begging to gaze into the mirror, not to test lies but to see if her lover's betrayal might finally distort her own reflection instead. Whether tool or talisman, the mirror of truth held up more than faces. It reflected the deepest human fears about what hides beneath the surface. And in that light, maybe its magic was real after all. Beneath the sacred slopes of Jebel Barkal, where ancient Nubians once climbed to commune with the gods, whispers persist of a secret older than the mountain itself, a hidden chamber carved deep into the bedrock, untouched for millennia. This isn't just another archaeological curiosity. Local legends claim this vault holds divine blueprints, tablets inscribed by the hands of deities with knowledge too potent for mortal eyes. And the most tantalizing part, modern technology suggests there might be truth buried in the myth. Ground-penetrating radar scans in 2012 revealed anomalies beneath the mountain's northern face, hollow spaces too geometrically precise to be natural formations. But here's where the mystery deepens. Every attempt to excavate has been met with bizarre setbacks. Drilling equipment mysteriously jams, tunnels collapse without explanation. Even drones flown into crevices lose signal, their last transmissions capturing strange, reflective surfaces deep within the rock. Some researchers suspect the chamber's architects deliberately engineered these obstacles, using acoustics to destabilize intruders or embedding magnetic stones to disrupt tools, an ancient security system still active after thousands of years. The few fragments recovered near the site only fuel the legend. a broken stele mentions the sealed words of Ammon, while pottery shards depict priests descending a stairway that swallows torchlight. Most compelling, a 1st-century Greek historian wrote of a Nubian priest-king who emerged from the mountain after 7 days missing. His hair turned white and his speech garbled, clutching a silver disc that crumbled to dust upon exposure to air. Why does this chamber resist discovery? Perhaps it was never meant to be found, a sacred trust for a future era when humanity is ready for its secrets. Or maybe the mountain itself guards its treasure, obeying vows made by long-dead keepers. Until someone deciphers the riddles protecting Jebel Barkal's heart, the chamber remains a whispered promise between history and myth, daring us to listen just a little closer. Some treasures carry more than beauty, they carry burdens. Few objects embody this truth like the infamous emerald of Queen Amanishakheto, a jewel that gleams with as much mystery as malice. Unearthed from her pyramid in the 19th century, the stone's deep green hue initially dazzled archaeologists until whispers began of its chilling legacy. Those who possessed it didn't just face bad luck, they encountered tragedies so precise they felt intentional. The pattern emerged quickly. The first documented owner, a British collector, drowned in his bath just weeks after acquiring the emerald, an odd accident for a man who couldn't swim. Next, a Parisian jeweler who examined the stone reportedly lost his sight within months, claiming the gem burned his dreams. By the early 20th century, the jewel had earned a reputation so dark even museums hesitated to display it. A curator at the Louvre allegedly locked it away after staff reported hearing a woman's voice humming near its case at night, a voice matching descriptions of Amanishakheto herself. Yet the most unsettling clue lies in the Queen's own history. Carvings in her burial chamber depict the emerald not as mere adornment, but as a vessel inscribed with symbols translating to the price of defiance. Scholars now suspect the stone was part of a ritual to punish thieves, infused with warnings only the ancients understood. Modern analysis revealed microscopic channels drilled into the gem, possibly designed to hold substances long since decayed, poisons perhaps, or something far stranger. What makes this curse stand apart from other legendary cursed objects? Unlike the Hope diamond with its broad strokes of misfortune, Amanishakheto's emerald seems to target with eerie specificity. Recent owners describe shared nightmares of a shadowed figure pointing accusingly, a detail eerily close to depictions of the Queen in judgment scenes. Today, the jewel sits in a vault, its location undisclosed. Some say it's for safety, others whisper it's because the emerald hasn't finished collecting debts. Either way, its legend remains a stark reminder: not all glittering things are meant to be claimed. Towering over the desert near Meroë stands a silent guardian few have heard of, the Nubian Sphinx. With the body of a lion and the regal face of a Kushite queen, this sandstone sentinel holds secrets far older than its Egyptian cousin. While the Great Sphinx of Giza famously asked travelers to solve its riddle or face death, Nubia's version played a different game, one where the stakes weren't life or limb but wisdom itself. Ancient inscriptions describe encounters with this enigmatic figure, where those who approached would suddenly hear a voice whispering from the sands. Unlike the Egyptian riddle's single question about the creature that walks on 4 legs at dawn, the Nubian Sphinx allegedly tailored its challenges to each seeker. A merchant might be asked to weigh the value of honesty against gold, while a soldier had to justify the blood on his spear. Surviving texts from Meroë recount a stunning pattern. Those who answered well often found their paths mysteriously smooth, stumbling upon hidden oases or avoiding ambushes. The distinction between the two sphinxes reveals deeper cultural values. Egypt's monument tested intelligence with a predetermined answer, reinforcing rigid societal hierarchies. But Nubia's Sphinx valued moral reasoning, reflecting a society where leadership required adaptability. Archaeologists discovered something fascinating at the Nubian Sphinx's base, a hollow chamber filled with worn dice and broken pottery. suggesting travelers left offerings after passing the test. Some fragments bear inscriptions like "the stone that listens," hinting at rituals we've only begun to understand. Modern attempts to explain the riddles range from clever acoustics wind channels in the statue's mouth that hummed like speech to psychotropic plants growing nearby that could induce visionary states. But perhaps the truth lies in the Sphinx's missing eyes. Originally inlaid with obsidian, they would have caught the sunlight at certain angles, creating an uncanny illusion of a live nest. In a land where the boundary between myth and reality was always thin, maybe the real magic was making people believe they stood before something divine long enough to hear their own conscience speak. Today, the eroded Sphinx still keeps its silent watch. Unlike Giza's polished tourist attraction, this weathered figure feels almost forgotten, but that might be intentional. Some legends insist the greatest riddle was making the world overlook it, ensuring only those truly seeking wisdom would ever think to ask. The desert night still hums with echoes of a battle that never truly ends, an eternal clash between Nubia's most powerful gods. Unlike fleeting mortal wars, this conflict pulses through the very fabric of time, a celestial cycle older than the pyramids themselves. At its heart stand two titanic forces, Apedemak, the lion-headed god of fire and conquest, and Anunnakhet, the Nile's life-giving goddess, locked in a dance of destruction and renewal that shaped Nubian understanding of existence. Ancient carvings at Nokka Temple depict the battle in startling detail, Apedemak's claws rending the sky, his flames licking at Anunnakhet's watery embrace while she answers with floods that quench his fury. But this wasn't just art, it was cosmology in stone. Priests calculated rituals to align with the gods' supposed clashes, interpreting droughts as Apedemak's temporary victories and bountiful floods as Anunnakhet's resurgence. A broken calendar stele even maps these cycles with uncanny precision, correlating celestial events with years of scarcity or abundance. What makes this myth so captivating is how it mirrors Nubia's landscape. The gods' struggle reflects the harsh duality of their world, the desert's scorching breath versus the Nile's sustaining flow. Unlike static creation myths, this eternal battle framed existence as dynamic, balanced not by peace but by tension. During festivals, worshippers reenacted the conflict through masked dances, symbolically restoring equilibrium. A Meroë-era scroll describes priestesses wearing lion pelts and river reeds, their movements choreographed to remind the gods of their pact, a reminder that neither side could ever truly win. Modern scholars see deeper layers at play. The cyclical battle may have functioned as an early scientific model, explaining climate patterns through narrative. When excavations at Kawa uncovered a hidden observatory, its star charts matched descriptions of the gods' skirmishes with celestial events like solstices or comet appearances. Even today, Nubian descendants whisper that thunderstorms over the Nile aren't just weather, they're distant roars from an age-old war still raging beyond mortal sight. Perhaps the myth's greatest lesson lies in its embrace of contradiction. Where other cultures sought resolution, Nubian cosmology found wisdom in the struggle itself, a reminder that creation and destruction are two sides of the same sacred blade. And if you stand very still in the desert at dawn, where heat and mist collide, you might just feel the aftershocks of that divine battle still shaping the world beneath your feet. Between the sun-scorched ruins of Nokka, something unsettling lingers in the air, not just heat but whispers. Visitors describe it as walking through an open-air library where the walls themselves murmur in a language just beyond understanding. Unlike ordinary echoes, these sounds seem deliberate fragments of conversations, snippets of prayers, even warnings that vanish the moment you turn your head. Local guides tell of a German archaeologist in the 1920s who swore he heard a child's laughter near the Lion Temple, though no living soul stood within miles. Decades later, a team recording bird calls accidentally captured low, rhythmic chanting on their equipment voices speaking in a dialect dead for centuries. The most haunting accounts come from desert nomads who insist the walls grow louder during lunar eclipses, as if the stones remember when the sky turns dark. Science offers intriguing theories. The ruins' unique sandstone composition, pitted by wind erosion, acts like a natural sound filter. Certain angles amplify distant noises, shifting dunes, animal movements molding them into eerie, almost human tones. But here's what defies explanation. Multiple witnesses report hearing distinct phrases in Meroitic, a language no one has fluently spoken for over 1,000 years. Linguists analyzed these recordings and found phonetic patterns matching surviving inscriptions too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Perhaps the most chilling detail lies in the ruins' design. Nokka's temples align with narrow passageways that funnel wind into eerie harmonics, suggesting the ancients engineered these whispers intentionally. Was it acoustic theater to awe worshippers, a forgotten communication method, or something more profound, walls imbued with voices through rituals we'll never comprehend? One thing's certain, Nokka refuses to stay silent. Even modern visitors leave with the same uneasy feeling that the ruins aren't just remnants of the past, but live participants in a conversation that never ended. And if you press your ear to the warm stone at dusk, you might just catch a secret not meant for your time. As twilight settled over the temple of Ammon, the last oracle of Nubia traced her fingers across a clay tablet, etching words that would outlive her kingdom. Known only as the Veiled Seer, her final prophecy carried neither vague symbolism nor hopeful ambiguity, just a stark warning. When the river forgets its name and the lion's roar becomes silence, the pillars will crumble from within. Within a generation, the once unshakable kingdom of Kush would vanish from historical records as abruptly as a snuffed torch. But was this prophecy a genuine glimpse of doom, or a self-fulfilling omen spoken into existence? The timing alone chills historians. The Veiled Seer's words coincided with Nubia's decline, the river forgetting its name, mirroring shifting trade routes that bypassed the Nile, while the lion's roar referenced Apedemak, whose cult dwindled as foreign religions spread. But the real intrigue lies in that last phrase, crumbling from within. Excavations at Meroë revealed startling evidence of internal collapse, graffiti on palace walls mocking the gods, half-finished construction projects abandoned mid-prayer. A Roman merchant's journal from the 4th century describes Kushite nobles squabbling over titles while the frontier defenses rotted exactly the decay the prophecy warned of. Yet the myth's power transcends historical coincidence. Long after Kush fell, the prophecy became a cultural touchstone. Coptic monks preserved copies as cautionary tales, and 19th-century Sudanese rebels invoked it against Ottoman rulers, framing their revolt as Nubia's delayed reckoning. Even modern archaeologists note eerie patterns, drought cycles, and political fractures echoing the oracle's imagery, leading some to wonder if her words weren't a prediction but a blueprint. Perhaps the true lesson of this myth isn't about foreseeing the future, but recognizing the signs we ignore. The Veiled Seer didn't just foretell an ending, she mapped the fragile threads holding civilizations together. And in a world where rivers still shift and pillars still crack, her warning lingers like desert wind against stone, not as a curse but as a mirror. From shape-shifting priests to cursed emeralds, the myths of ancient Nubia have twisted through time like the Nile itself, never fully revealing their secrets. These aren't just forgotten tales, they're living puzzles, each one offering a glimpse into a civilization that saw the world through a lens of magic and meaning. Whether it's the phantom army still marching beneath the stars or the whispers trapped in Nokka's stones, these stories defy simple explanations. They challenge us to question what we know about history, about belief, about the thin line between legend and truth. What makes these myths so extraordinary isn't just their strangeness, it's how deeply they're woven into Nubia's identity. The eternal battle of gods mirrors the desert's harsh beauty. The vanishing city of Danjel reflects a people who mastered illusions long before modern science. Even the cursed treasures and speaking statues reveal a culture that understood power wasn't just in gold or armies, but in stories that outlasted empires. So which of these 25 mysteries lingers in your mind? The immortal pharaoh waiting to reclaim his throne, the golden serpent coiled beneath the sands, or perhaps the dream steel that foretold futures yet to unfold? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear which legend captivates you. And if you're hungry for more, dive deeper into Nubia's hidden history. From its warrior queens to its lost libraries, there's always another layer waiting to be uncovered. After all, the past never really stays silent. It just waits for the right moment to speak.